If you're an enhanced bodybuilder, listen up, okay? I love the fact that everyone likes to give advice to anyone in the gym. It's one of the best qualities about bodybuilders. They're super excited to give advice. But we have to be careful about the advice that we give to people that are obviously natural. Okay, bodybuilders who are enhanced, listen up to this. Now, I think it's fantastic that bodybuilders are so excited to give advice to people in the gym. A lot of people probably don't expect that until they actually talk to one and they see how nice they are and willing to give advice. That's awesome. But we have to be careful about how we give this advice to people that are obviously natural. The first big one is training advice. If you give someone advice that's natural on how to train, and that advice isn't tailored for a natural person, it's probably going to fail. They're going to get depressed, and they're probably even going to be resentful towards you for even giving them the advice in the first place, because you just wasted their time. Worse than that, what if you give them diet advice, and then the diet advice doesn't work the way it works for you? When you do it, you just explode and you look fantastic. They do it, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes weeks. So again, they get depressed and resentful. Or even worse, you give this advice to a guy, then he can't get an erection to save his life. Or you give this advice to a female, and then she's having irregular menstrual cycles, her hair's falling out, and then she comes looking at you like, why'd you tell me to do that? That's a terrible idea, and it's dangerous, to be quite honest with you. So you have to be careful about the training and diet advice you give people that are natural. And the big one with dieting advice. All these bodybuilders want to act like they're the biggest badasses and so hardcore, and they never cheat on their diet. That's fine if they want to act like that. That's cool. I know the truth. I get it. But the thing is, to natural people, they don't understand that if you're enhanced, you have a lot more leeway on your diet. And I do mean by not following it. And it's to the point that like some bodybuilders don't follow their diet 100% of their time and then say that they follow it 100% of the time. And then I'm over here like, dude, you obviously just didn't, that's not on your diet. But it's not going to affect how you look because you're on gear, which is fine. That's one of the pros of taking gear. Duh. But when you're giving advice to someone that's natural about dieting, you have to remember, they really have to stick to the diet. I mean, like literally 100%, because if they're off for a day, it could take them days to dig themselves out of that hole. If you're off for a day, you're going to be back on point the next day, if I'm being quite honest with you. The point is, if you miss your macros by, let's say 10% for a day, it's probably not going to affect you that much. And like, honestly, it's really not. Like, you're lying to yourself if you think it's going to make that big of an impact if you miss your macros by 10% for one day. If a natural person does it, they could be digging themselves out of that hole for days at a time before they're back on point. And it sounds like it's not a lot being just 10%, but if it's something like carbs or fats, that can make a huge difference on how they look in just a few days. So the diet for a natural athlete is very important, mainly because of hormonal support. So natural athletes gotta have the right amount of fats and the right type of fats in their diet so that they're supported hormonally. A bodybuilder, you don't. Now, why would a bodybuilder not need fats for hormonal support? Because they're injecting their hormones. So that's where, and I'm not talking about every hormone, like let's be real, but they're injecting the ones that matter for their goal. Same thing for a natty. Okay, so like when you're talking about those two different things, like it's way apart as far as how important fats are in a diet. They're important for a bodybuilder, I get that. But the fact is, you could pull them out of a bodybuilder's diet for a week, you'll be fine. You pull it out of a natty person's diet for a week, they're completely screwed up, and it could be weeks before you get them back on track. And if you pull fats from the diet of someone that's natural, that's on a prep, I promise you, their prep almost always just completely falls apart. Entirely. If you do that to a bodybuilder, sometimes they look even better, and sometimes it's necessary. And then you have to remember, fats are supporting you hormonally, but dietary fat and body fat are two different things. They're not the same. And like when you're dieting for a show and you get such low body fat, imagine how you'd feel if you're natural and you're super low body fat and you didn't have any dietary fats in your diet. Think about that. You would feel absolutely like dog shit. Let's be honest. It would be terrible. Like these bodybuilders want to act like they feel so terrible going into a prep. And then at the end of the prep, they feel so bad going on stage. I get it. You do. Obviously you do, because you've been prepping so hard. I get it. But imagine how bad a natural athlete feels at the end of the diet going on stage for a prep. And they've had no hormonal support from injections. Okay. And then the only hormonal support they have are what little fats they do have in their diet. I mean, think about it. A lot of times bodybuilders want to act like their prep is harder than a natural athlete's. It's not. I'm sorry, but this is coming from someone that's not natural at all. I've never competed natural ever. But I know for a fact that someone that's competing as a natural, and they actually do well, that is, and look good to achieve that look that you're thinking of to win a show, it's probably a lot harder, man. The next big thing that people mess up with is giving advice about training. Enhanced bodybuilders can train harder, they can train longer, and they can train more often, as in a higher frequency. But if you're someone that's natural, you just can't do that. But don't misinterpret that, because there's plenty of people that take steroids and train like freaking wusses, and then they wonder why they don't change. I mean, this is the type of people you walk into your gym, and I promise you, people will be shocked. You would be shocked to walk into your local gym and know how many people are actually taking steroids or TRT. You're not going to be able to figure it out just by looking at them, I promise you. Because the dudes that look like they're on steroids, those are the guys that train their freaking nuts off in the gym, okay? I promise you. Those are the ones that train harder than anyone else. It has nothing to do with them taking steroids, except the steroids allow them to train harder, longer, faster, and more frequency, right? And here's the key. This is the real truth, okay? Steroids don't necessarily make you train harder, okay? They just give you the opportunity, because there's plenty of people that take tons of different steroids, even the ones that get you psychologically jacked, like halo testing or something. You're thinking, oh, well, that one makes you train harder. Kinda, but it doesn't get your ass off the couch and into the gym. Okay, they just give you an opportunity to train harder. Not everyone jumps on that opportunity and takes it, right? Now, if you're natty, 9 times out of 10, your training schedule is going to need to look something like push-pull legs, off day, push-pull legs, off day, something like that. And most likely keeping the volume and the load lower than what an enhanced athlete would be at. And to be quite honest with you, the thing you need to focus on most is periodizing your training, because you really could make the argument that volume and load can be the same for enhanced or non-enhanced, right? It really just matters about intensity. Intensity and recovery are really the two biggest variables when you're talking about the differences between someone that's enhanced and that's natural. If you're natural, you have to periodize your training. You almost have to, man. You got to. You got to take deloads. You have to recover when it's necessary. Someone that's not natural, they don't really have to worry that much about deloads. It will help. They should, but quite honestly, they can get away without it. And then as far as intensity, this is probably the one that makes the biggest difference on how an enhanced bodybuilder looks compared to just your average natural person in the gym. That is the intensity. I talked earlier about, steroids giving you the opportunity to train harder. This is where that comes into play. The more intense you train, the better outcomes you're going to get. Through any kind of training models, that's the one thing that is the same within them, and that is the intensity and the effort you put out. If you put out intensity and effort within your different training models, you're going to reach your goal. You're going to get to what you're trying to get to, right? If you train as intense as you can within those different training models, you're going to achieve your goal. And it's probably hypertrophy training, so you're going to do it. But if you're someone that's natural, you can't train to failure with this maximum intensity every single day. You just can't do it. But enhanced bodybuilders, a lot of them, they can do it, because they're on all these exogenous hormones. Their calories are through the roof. The hormones are allowing them to use the calories. They're recovering quicker. They can do it. So here's the key takeaways for this whole thing. We got to be careful about the advice we give on training and the advice we give on dieting, and overall the expectations that we give people that are natural. Because when we give advice on training and diet, a lot of times they're thinking that's going to make them look like us. And I get it. Bodybuilders, some of us have trained for a decade, some of us trained for a couple of years, some of us have worked harder. I get it, right? But we just have to be realistic with this advice that we're giving people, because that's what's shedding a bad light on some bodybuilders. And I've literally seen it happen. Enhanced bodybuilders give some kid advice on training or dieting, and then 3-4 months later they come back and that kid actually did it. He got like no results, and I'm like, obviously I see why you didn't get results, and like that training plan is not going to work. There's no way you can keep up with that. Like, we have to be careful on this. And there's plenty of other things that, as far as advice coming from a bodybuilder to someone that's natural, that advice has got to go, man. There's plenty of other things, but if y'all can think of anything I might have left out besides these 2 big key points, leave a comment down below and let's see what people think.